was the last one, with the sunlight coming through the trees. I looked down into the hole, and there's a metal plate. It didn't say Her Royal Highness, the Princess of Wales. It said Diana, Princess of Wales. I thought, why couldn't they, in the last moment, have given her back her title? It wouldn't have hurt anyone. So I picked up some earth and threw it into the hole. And that's where my life was. And I can remember begging her, saying, why didn't you take me with you? My name is Paul Burrell. For 21 years, I looked after the British royal family. For 11 years, I looked after Her Majesty the Queen, and for the following 10 years, Princess Diana. I was born in a coal mining community in the north of England, in a little tiny village called Grasmore near Chesterfield in Derbyshire. And my fate was to be a coal miner, like my grandfather, like my father, and my brothers. I didn't want to go down the mine. I didn't want to go down the pit and come back every day black. I saw my grandfather die with emphysema. I knew it was a dangerous job, and as a child I didn't like to get my hands dirty. So I thought, no, I've got to escape this world. I left school when I was 16 years old with no qualifications, and I went to the local catering college. Whilst I was studying hotel management, the principal at the college said to me, they're looking for boys like you to train at Buckingham Palace. Would you like to go for an interview? So I thought, that'd be interesting. So I went for the interview, and I got the job. And at the age of 18, I arrived at those famous gates. It wasn't the first time I'd been to Buckingham Palace. As a small child, I stood in front of the railings watching the changing of the guard. I was only 8 years old, and I turned to my father and said, one day, I'm going to work here. And he ruffled my hair and said, yeah, sure you are. A coal miner's son from the north of England? I don't think so. But at the age of 18, I arrived at the tradesman's entrance of Buckingham Palace and began my new life at that very famous residence. I remember the first night in my bed, looking at my uniforms, thinking, is this real? Pinching myself, thinking, this is just fantasy. It can't be true. But it was true. Within the first year of my service in the royal household, I was one of 20 household footmen. Right at the bottom. The Queen had spotted me, and she said to the palace steward, I like that young man. That one that's always smiling. What's his name? And the palace steward said to the Queen, he's Paul, Your Majesty. He's our latest recruit. Would you send him upstairs? I'd like to take a closer look. So I was summoned into Her Majesty's presence just for one day. At breakfast that morning, we had sausages. And I thought, the Queen's going to ask me to take her dogs for a walk in the garden. So I stuffed my tailcoat pocket with sausages. I went upstairs to see the Queen for the day. Would you like to take the dogs out for a walk, Paul? I'd love to, Your Majesty. Let's see how you get along with them. In those days, the Queen had 9 corgis living with her inside the palace. I still remember watching those little net drapes twitch as she watched me running through the garden with the dogs. Of course, the dogs loved me. The Queen to this day never knew that I had a pocket full of sausages. So my career was set. She liked me. She said she'd keep me. And she kept me for 11 years. And I traveled all around the world. Wherever she went, I went. Who she met, I met. What she ate, I ate. So what a colourful life I had. The first aeroplane I ever flew on was Concorde. We took Concorde to Saudi Arabia. The first ship I ever sailed on wasn't the Queen Elizabeth II, it was the Royal Yacht Britannia. So I went around the world with the Queen, saw presidents, kings and queens, princes and princesses. It was a very interesting and informative time for me, and the Queen became a sort of surrogate mother to me. And she told me much about her life and her history, and she taught me how to speak properly. So where did life take me? It took me to all the royal residences, to Buckingham Palace, Windsor Castle, Sandringham, Balmoral, and on board the Royal Yacht Britannia. In the summer of 1980, the Queen told me that a young girl was coming to stay for the weekend. Will you meet her at the front door and show her a room? Of course, Your Majesty. So I'm standing in the front hallway of Balmoral Castle under black and white tiles, waiting for this car to arrive. And out of the car comes a shy young girl that nobody knew who she was. She had one little suitcase in the back. Is that all you've brought with you? You're here for the weekend. You have to go to hunting, shooting, you have to go to the Gillies Ball, tea parties, lunch parties, and that's all you have. She says, will it do? I said, I think we'd better take you to her room and find out. I showed her to her room. Will you stay for a while and have a chat with me? I'm completely out of my depth, she said. So I stayed. What time do you go down for tea? 4 o'clock. You go down to the small drawing room. The Queen will pour you a cup of tea. I don't like tea. I'll make sure she has coffee there waiting for you. Then what happens? I said, when tea's cleared, you go into the drawing room, and then the Queen will pour you a gin and tonic. I don't drink. I'll make sure there's a glass of water there for you. Then what happens? Then the Queen plays cards on her card table. Do you play bridge? Yes. Then make sure you're sat at the card table to play bridge with the Queen. That's a good way to get to know Her Majesty. Then the Queen will take the dogs into the garden. Maybe you could suggest you went for a walk with her. Also a good time to get Her Majesty's ear. That's what you want to do. This young girl was fascinated by this routine of royal households. And as I closed the door that day, I noticed the name on the door, Lady Diana Spencer.
Do you find it a very daunting experience that yesterday you were a nanny looking after children, now you're about to marry the Prince of Wales, and one day you would, in all likelihood, be Queen? It's a tremendous change for someone, if I may say, of 19 to make all of a sudden, the transition.
It is, but I've had a small run up to it all in the last 6 months. And next to Prince Charles and I can't go wrong. He's there with me.
I haven't seen the ring. Maybe have a look at you.
Yes. Wonderful sapphire and diamond.
When were you given that? Just last night? Or?
Yeah, Sunday.
But not wearing it yesterday?
No, pretty hidden.
But I was absolutely determined that it was going to be as near a secret as possible on the actual day. That was my ambition.
But you're both obviously excited, but it must have been awfully difficult trying to keep that secret.
Yes.
Very good for us.
Very good for me.
Good practice.
Yes.
And good for the people we told, too. Quite interesting to see who can keep secrets.
1 year later, you saw that woman became a royal princess in this cathedral behind me. St. Paul's Cathedral was the setting. The most watched event in human history was her wedding day. The longest train in royal history, the most creased dress in royal history. But the princess was brimming with hope and love for the future.
Thank you, all the crosses.
Take thee, Charles Philip Arthur George,
Take thee, Philip Charles Arthur George,
to my wedded husband.
to my wedded husband.
She fell in love with her prince. And there they were, a golden couple. And a year later, that was completed by William arriving.
Does Prince William have a favourite toy?
Jamie, he loves his koala bear he's got. But he hasn't got anything particular. He just likes something with a bit of noise. He got a plastic whale that throws things out the top, little balls.
And that's a point to which I often refer, because that one moment of humanity changed my life. And I saw the princess in a different light. I saw her as beautiful inside as she was on the outside. What an incredible human being. We will never see the likes of her again. So my life with her was filled with fun, with happiness, with drama, controversy, and lots of things happened in those 10 years.
Mrs. Barker Bowles is a great friend of mine. I have a large number of friends I'm terribly lucky to have.
The Prince of Wales had just been on TV to admit adultery with Camilla Parker Bowles, and the princess that evening was due to go out to the Serpentine Gallery to see her old friend Lord Palumbo.
When marriages break down, awful and miserable as that is, that so often, you know, that it is your friends who are the most important.
I can't go. I'm not going. I'm not going. It'll be too humiliating. The whole world now knows that Charles has been having an affair. He's admitted it. You are going, I said. I've got nothing to wear. Yes, you have got something to wear. I went up to her wardrobe room and picked out a Christina Strombolian dress with a fishtail. This is what you're going to wear, I said. I can't fit into it. Yes, you can. Put it on. So she slipped it on. Now, to complement that, I think we should have the pearl choker and the sapphire. That's all you need. High heels and those jewels. Right, she put them on and she looked $1 million. Remember, when you go out there, I said, you stride, you hold your head high, you smile, you engage, firm handshake. Say to yourself, I am Diana, Princess of Wales, and I am here to stay. I am the mother of the future King of England. Say it to yourself. Say it. So she said it. She went out there. She did it. I saw it on the news, and I wrote her a little note and put it on her pillow that night. Well done, girl. You did it. That's what I was there for. I was there to support her, to be there as a friend, as a confidant, and a butler. But as sort of a father figure and a brother all rolled into one. My role became more and more and more as the year passed. She called me her rock. She said, you're the only man I've ever really trusted. You are the captain of my ship. Without you, she wrote, we'd all be lost.
I see the sun out. It's change.
Wish you luck. Enjoy your
I was told a long time ago I'd backed the loser. I'd gone with the one who would be forgotten. And here we are, 20 years later. We're still talking about her because Diana has become an icon. We're talking about her because she changed the rule book. She tore out pages from that dusty old book and she rewrote those rules. She changed the royal family forever. The ghost of Diana will always haunt the House of Windsor. She changed the rules for the women she'd never meet. She changed the rules for Catherine so that she would have a better life, a better passage. And whoever Harry marries, she changed the rules for her too. So in a way, she's changing the rules for her children. Her children, William and Harry, are her legacy to the world. They will finish their mother's work.
We wanted to represent exactly what our mother would have wanted, how she was and all that sort of things. So therefore, the church service alone isn't enough. We wanted to have this big concert with, full of energy, full of sort of fun and happiness, which I knew she would have wanted. And on her birthday as well, it's got to be the best birthday present she's ever had. And with it, we can, by the two of us organising it, we wanted to have the fact that the evening is all about our mother. The main purpose is to celebrate and to have fun and to remember her in a fun way. It's the idea is we wanted to get artists that our mother really loved, and then artists that both Harry and I enjoy, And then in the middle with the ballet and Andrew Lloyd Webber, obviously she loved her dancing and her musicals. So with that, you've got a sort of something different. It's not just any old concert. It's going to be different, and it's going to be interesting. If it works, it'll be brilliant. If it doesn't, then we won't be in the country.
You won't see us for a very long time.
Yeah.
And will we see you dancing?
I really hope not.
I hope so. Him, not me. I hope we can get a chance to see him dance.
It'll be a terrifying sight if we do.
She cared massively. We've been left in no doubt at all that we were the most important thing in her life. And then after that, it was everyone else.
Really caring, so sweet, and very much missed by not only us, but I think a lot of people.
At 36 years old, you don't expect your mother to die. Her untimely death catapulted those boys into the forefront of the royal family. They are the royal family's future. One day we will see King William and Queen Catherine on the throne of England. And strangely enough, when William and Harry came to see me at Kensington Palace shortly after their mother died, I said to them, you must take something. Take something which belonged to her that you can keep safe. What do you want, William? I said. I'd like Mummy's Cartier watch, the one that Grandpa Spencer gave to her for her 21st birthday. Okay, I went to the safe and I got the watch. And what about you, Harry? What would you like? I remember, he said, when I held Mummy's hand when I was a small boy, that ring always hurt me because it's so big. Do you mean her engagement ring? Yes. So I went to the safe and gave Harry Diana's engagement ring. William told Harry that he was going to become engaged to Catherine. Harry said to him, wouldn't it be fitting if she had Mummy's ring? And then one day, that ring will be sat on the throne of England. So Harry gave up his precious treasure, his one thing he kept from his mother, he gave to his brother. That's selfless, kind, and exactly who Diana was. Harry has Diana's personality. William has his father's. Harry is fun, naughty, great time out. William is serious and studious and kingly. Two boys from the same parents, two boys, very different nature.
We shared a similar feeling of loss, having a loved one, in my case a parent, snatched away so suddenly. I, like them, knew there would always be a gaping hole that could never be filled.
And finally got hands-on to a job that I absolutely adore. It is still hard work, but I'm better than William, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Have you been helping him with the exams?
Yeah, an awful lot. He needs a lot of help. It's it's the RAF way, so you have to help the army out quite a lot.
I mean, does it come down to sort of mental maths tests? Or?
Yeah, a bit of that. A few trick questions, try and catch them out.
7 8s.
Yeah, exactly. Lots of that.
The only secret Diana ever kept from me was the Martin Bashir interview for Panorama. Now, I'd known Martin Bashir for a long time, and he was one of the men that I used to bring into the palace under a blanket because he didn't want to be seen by anyone. He was never a lover of the princesses. He was just a work associate. He persuaded the princess that she had to have a voice. She needed to tell her story, and what better a vehicle than Panorama? I was sent home on a Sunday afternoon. Strange, I thought. Why would she be sending me home? Go and spend some time with your family. I'm doing nothing this afternoon. Don't worry about me. The minute I'd left the palace, in through the back door comes Martin Bashir and his camera crew. And they set up the Prince of Wales sitting room, which she used for that interview.
At the age of 19, you always think you're prepared for everything, and you think you have the knowledge of what's coming ahead. But although I was daunted at the prospect at the time, I felt I had the support of my husband-to-be.
I had no idea that was being done. The next morning I came to work, I noticed all the furniture had been moved. Why have you moved the furniture? It's not in the same place. I had a dance class. I had to move the furniture out of the way just so that we could exercise. Strange, very strange. She avoided me for the next 2 days, never spoke to me. How strange, I thought, she's hiding something. And then she told me that she'd made a recording with Martin Bashir for Panorama. What have you said? Well, I just put the record straight, she said. We didn't know what she'd said until we saw it.
Well, there were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded.
31 million people stopped in their tracks on that Monday night and couldn't believe what they were seeing. The Princess of Wales bearing her heart on national television. We couldn't take our eyes away from it. We couldn't believe what we were hearing. There are 3 people in my marriage. My husband isn't fit for the top job. I think it would bring him limitations. She was honest, open, and frank. Did you love James Hewitt?
Yes, it did. Yes.
Were you unfaithful?
Yes, I adored him. Yes, I was in love with him. But I was very let down.
It was all there. I couldn't believe it. It was too raw for most people and an embarrassment for the royal family. That was the final straw. That was the straw that broke the back of the House of Windsor. From that moment on, Diana was outcast. Her titles were stripped. She was no longer prayed for in church. She was on her own.
You do live very much on your own, don't you?
Yes, I am. I don't mind that, actually. You know, people think that at the end of the day, a man is the only answer. Actually, a fulfilling job is better for me.
Living and working with the Queen was far more easy than living with Diana. With the Queen, we always knew that her life ran with routines and protocols and timetables. We knew that breakfast would be 9 o'clock, lunch would be 1 o'clock, tea would be 5 o'clock, and dinner would be 8:15. It was the same every day. It's Groundhog Day at Buckingham Palace. With Diana, anything could happen. No routine, no timetables, nothing. We might skip lunch, we might be shopping, we could be doing anything during the day. So life was more exciting with Diana. But the difference between the two worlds was I always knew where I was with the Queen. I always knew where the line was in the sand. I knew when not to cross that line, and I knew to stay and bow. I was a servant, but also a friend and confidant to the Queen, but in a different way. With Diana, it was, come and sit down, have a cup of tea with me, have a cup of coffee. Don't just stand there. I used to stand every morning waiting for the princess to come through from her dressing room. And every morning, standing there with a half a grapefruit and a cup of black coffee, I'd bow and say, "Good morning, Your Royal Highness." "For goodness sake," she'd say, "when are you going to stop doing that? It's just me and you in the room. Sit down, have a cup of coffee with me and tell me what's been going on." That was her world. Diana did things differently. There was a memo came from Buckingham Palace. "Diana, when you're in public, please wear a hat and please wear gloves, because you're touching the public and you might catch something. And I'm not too sure about you touching those people with HIV and AIDS. Are you sure you're safe?" We lived in a world of ignorance. We lived in a world where people were not educated. They didn't know. The princess introduced me to the first person dying with HIV and AIDS. I didn't know anything about it until she showed me that world. She would sit and hold people's hands and counsel them. So life with Diana was very different. Life with Diana was 24/7. My wife said, "There are 3 people in my marriage too, because Diana is always there." She used to say, "She's your baby." I said, "Yes, she's my baby. She needs me. She needs me to be there." My wife had 2 children. The princess had no one. Her children were away at boarding school. She had no husband. Occasionally, she had a male companion, but they came and they went. I was responsible for that too. I was a go-between. I was the one that went out with my car, brought people back to Kensington Palace in the back seat of my car underneath a blanket, just to give the princess some love. All she was ever looking for was to be loved. She used to say to me, all I ever want, Paul, is a man to put their arms around me and say, I love you. That's not too much to ask, is it? And that's what she was searching for. Towards the end of her life, of course, she found her soulmate. Her soulmate was Hasnat Khan, the heart surgeon. Hasnat Khan had been the princess's companion for over 2 years. Nobody knew about Hasnat Khan. That was not played out on the world stage. Whereas, after they'd broken up, the princess was invited to the south of France by the Mohammed Al-Fayeds. She met Dodi Al-Fayed. Did you know that the romance of the princess and Dodi Al-Fayed was 30 days from beginning to end? It only lasted 30 days. I spoke to her regularly when she was away. Have you seen Hasnat? I said, yes, I went for a drink with him last night. What does he think of me being here in the south of France with Dodi Al-Fayed? Well, he's not too pleased. Has he seen the pictures in the papers? Yes, he has, because you know his routine. You know every morning he goes to the corner shop and sees the press. You know that. And I know that's what you're doing. You're manipulating the world's media by having these pictures taken to show Hasnat who you're with. It's a sort of a... Are you jealous? Do you mind? Do you care? Are you bothered? That's what Diana was saying to Hasnat Khan through those pictures in the world's media. And of course Hasnat was bothered. And I didn't find out until recently that he called her the day before she died on her mobile phone. He called her to try and patch up their relationship. Had she returned to London, I truly believe the romance between Hasnat Khan and the princess would have been rekindled. It was too strong. It was too deep. They were true soulmates. I said to the princess, when are you coming home? I'm coming home on Sunday, Paul. I'm just bored. I'm on this boat. It's freezing cold downstairs. It's boiling hot on deck. I'm sending these pictures out and nobody's coming back to me. I'm having no communication. I need to come home. But the only way home is on the Harrods jet. The only way I can get home is via Paris, because Dodi has to go to Paris to do some business for his father. How is he with you? Oh, he's very spoiling. He's very generous, the princess said. He's given me a necklace, some earrings. He's given me a watch. I said, you know what's coming next, don't you? He's going to give you a ring. Do you think so? Oh, yes. He'll give you a ring. But remember, when he gives it to you, put it on the fourth finger of your right hand. Oh, yes. Fourth finger, right hand. I can hear her saying it. Fourth finger, right hand. Yes, that's the thing to do. I'll do that. You always know what to do. That's exactly what I'll do. So if there was a ring, which I very much doubt, it would have been placed on the fourth finger of the right hand. Fate in the wrong place at the wrong time. That tragic accident should never have happened, but that's what it must be. It must be an accident. What confuses me, of course, is the fact that 10 months before that, the princess had written me a letter. And in that letter, she said, in her own handwriting, on her own stationery, her words were, "The next few months are the most difficult in my life. I fear that my husband is planning an accident in my car, head injuries, in order that he can remarry." Now, when you read those words, a prophecy the princess made 10 months before she died that came true, it's rather eerie. But I think it was just paranoia at the time. We checked the brakes on the car. several times. We pulled the floorboards up in her sitting room to look for listening devices. We didn't find anything, but then we didn't know what we were looking for. So I have no idea whether people were listening, people were following, people were watching. I have no idea. All I can believe is that no one would sign an order to murder the mother of the future King of England. Who would want to murder Diana? I can't believe that. It's now the 31st of August. In the late hours, I just returned from the theatre. We'd been to see Beauty and the Beast. Rather ironic, really. The princess used to say, that's the story of my life. And the phone rings. It's Lucia Fletcher de Lima, the Brazilian ambassador's wife in Washington. She said, Paul, CNN have just reported the princess is in an accident in Paris. Can you find out more? You've got her mobile number. I don't have it. Ring her. So I put the phone down and immediately rang the princess's mobile phone. And it rang and rang and rang. And I thought that's strange because in those days, mobile phones were in their infancy, but she always carried it with her. I didn't know that it was just ringing out on a marble top inside the suite at the Ritz in Paris. I had no idea where this phone was. She hadn't taken it with her. Right, I must get into work mode and find out more about this accident. So I went up to her apartment and waited for news to come from Balmoral. And at first we'd heard the princess had had head injuries and broken her arm. And then at 2 o'clock in the morning we heard that the injuries were more serious than they first thought. And it wasn't until about 3 o'clock that they told us that the accident had been fatal. And during this time, my thoughts were, I must get to Paris, because if she's incapacitated in any way, she'll need me to support her, to take care of her, to keep her safe. And when I heard that the accident was fatal, I thought there's even more reason for me to be there. I do need to keep her safe. I need to protect her. I need to look after her. And so I booked my flight through New York. It was still open. And I was on the first flight to Paris the next morning. So early Sunday morning, I arrived in Paris and was taken straight by the British ambassador, taken to the hospital. And I remember going into the elevator and the elevator doors opening on the first floor and looking down the corridor and seeing 2 gendarmes stood outside of a door. And I thought, that's where she is. So I was led, not to that room, but to the room next door. Nurse Humbert was the French nurse on duty, small, petite nurse that could only speak broken English. And she came to me and said, Paul, would you like to go in to see the princess? I said, yes, I would. I'm going to describe to you what I saw. As the door opened, it was a very warm night in Paris. The room was stiflingly hot. I'd noticed 2 people in the corner, shady-looking characters behind a screen. Later I realized they were the undertakers. And I approached the bed. It was a hospital bed, and the princess was covered in a white sheet. Her head and her feet were visible, and her hands were on top of the sheet. And I approached the bed, and I stared for a while in disbelief, and I watched the fan whirring on the side of the bed table. A fan was moving on the bedside table, and as it moved the princess's hair, and I could see her eyelashes moving. And I took her hand and said, wake up. You're asleep, aren't you? Wake up. And nothing happened. She was soft and warm. Not dead at all, to me. It was quite a while before I realized that she was actually not with us. And then the floodgates opened, and I'm not ashamed to say that I'm I think they could hear me in the next building. I was grief-stricken, but I pulled myself together and realized I had this job to do. And remembered what she told me about death. She said, at that moment when you pass, your spirit lifts from the body and you hang around for a while and watch. So I said, you're here, aren't you? You're here. You're watching me. You're watching what I'm doing. And I'll try and do it the way you'd want me to do it. So I stayed with her. And it wasn't such a harrowing experience after that, because I realized it was cathartic in a way that I could help her. I could bring her back as a royal princess. I could bring her back in the style to which she should be brought back. And I stayed, and I came home with her on the plane and brought her home into central London. And what was moving about that night was all the cars were stopped on the motorway, and people were standing on the central reservation waiting for the hearse to come by. I couldn't believe it. Standing, hundreds of them, on gangways, on bridges, by the side of the road, no cars moving. People had got out of their cars. It's the most incredible thing. And we brought her home, and I came home, and I had a little walk in the gardens of Kensington Palace and saw people beginning to bring their floral tributes. Maybe just 20 or 30 of them, maybe 100. Nothing like what would happen that week. I think actually that rocked the royal family. It shocked them to the core. They didn't understand what was happening. They didn't understand that the world could love a woman whom they'd never met. They didn't understand why people were crying in the street. They thought the world had gone mad, that everybody had gone hysterical. The Queen's first thought was to keep her grandchildren safe, and so she kept them at Balmoral and looked after them behind those walls. That's what she thought was the best thing for them. There was no flag flying at Buckingham Palace. It seemed the royal family didn't care. They wanted rid of Diana. They stripped her of her royal titles, and she was an outcast. Now what to do about it? This had never happened before. It was unprecedented. There was no rule book to look to say, what shall we do next? Everybody was feeling their way very carefully. It was a very sensitive time. The royal family were almost on the brink of losing their throne. That would be generated throughout the week with hysteria, with emotion.
First, I want to pay tribute to Diana myself. She was an exceptional and gifted human being. In good times and bad, she never lost her capacity to smile and laugh, nor to inspire others with her warmth and kindness. I admired and respected her for her energy and commitment to others, and especially for her devotion to her 2 boys. This week at Balmoral, we have all been trying to help William and Harry come to terms with the devastating loss that they and the rest of us have suffered. No one who knew Diana will ever forget her. Millions of others who never met her, but felt they knew her, will remember her. I, for one, believe there are lessons to be drawn from her life and from the extraordinary and moving reaction to her death. I share in your determination to cherish her memory.
I remember sending a message back to Buckingham Palace to say, would it be possible for the princess to come home for one last night? and the Queen said it was a good opportunity to extend the funeral procession because 2 million people were coming to London to watch this spectacle. So she said it was a very good idea, and yes. So the princess came home. And I asked all the family if they'd like to come and pay their respects and stay with me on a vigil. Nobody came. So I'm sat with Diana at Kensington Palace. And I said to her, isn't this appropriate? It's just me and you. The way it's always been, just me and you rattling around inside this palace. So, I suppose I should better pull up a chair and have a chat. And I remember pulling up a chair and leaning on her coffin, covered in the Royal Standard, and talking to her all night long. I talked about all her friends. I talked about all the outpouring of love from people. I said, if only you could see this, but then I suppose you can see this. And what would you have said?
I stand before you today, the representative of a family in grief, in a country in mourning, before a world in shock. We are all united, not only in our desire to pay our respects to Diana, but rather in our need to do so. Today is our chance to say thank you for the way you brightened our lives, even though God granted you but half a life. We will all feel cheated, always, that you were taken from us so young, and yet we must learn to be grateful that you came along at all. Only now you are gone do we truly appreciate what we are now without, and we want you to know that life without you is very, very difficult. For all the status, the glamour, the applause, Diana remained throughout a very insecure person at heart, almost childlike in her desire to do good for others, so she could release herself from deep feelings of unworthiness, of which her eating disorders were merely a symptom. She would want us today to pledge ourselves to protecting her beloved boys, William and Harry, from a similar fate, and I do this here, Diana, on your behalf. We will not allow them to suffer the anguish that used regularly to drive you to tearful despair. And beyond that, on behalf of your mother and sisters, I pledge that we, your blood family, will do all we can to continue the imaginative and loving way in which you are steering these two exceptional young men, so that their souls are not simply immersed by duty and tradition, but can sing openly as you planned. Above all, we give thanks for the life of a woman I'm so proud to be able to call my sister, the unique, the complex, the extraordinary and irreplaceable Diana, whose beauty, both internal and external, will never be extinguished from our minds.
My favourite memory of The Princess is a very personal one because I was the only witness to it. And it was a regular occurrence and it used to thrill me. I used to hear the piano being played in the drawing room. And the Princess was an accomplished pianist. Her favourite piece of music was Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2, which, if you were a film historian, you would know was played throughout David Lean's film Brief Encounter, one of our favourite films. We'd sit and watch that black and white movie with a box of tissues between us.
What do you believe? That it's the same with you. That you've fallen in love too.
And I'd hear these chords and know she was up there. I would sneak up the staircase and peep in through the drawing room door and watch that vision with wet hair scraped back over her head, in a white toweling robe tied tight, head back, playing Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto. That was magic. When that happened, when we lost Diana, the world stopped, just for one brief second. Everybody took a deep breath in disbelief. What was that? If you could distill that essence, that was Diana. But it was something more than that. I think it's what people call magic.